Welcome back, everybody, to Hoops HD. It is our continuing and never-ending 23-24 preseason coverage. This is our Pac-12 preview show, and amazingly, our last ever. I mean, maybe the name might stick around, but our last ever Pac-12 preseason preview show, as the conference is in its final run through of being a real conference. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood. David Dorman and David Griggs up here, although we lost Griggs, thankfully.
I'm here. I'm here. Here I am. Here I am.
I
Is
got
the show
John
started
Tytel
yet?
below me. To his side's John Salika, Brian Black back with us again, Matt Zakowski down on the bottom row. Uh, it is the Pac-12 preview show, and we look at the preseason top 25. It's coming there at number 12. I think it's most people are picking this team to win the conference. It is the school that both Mr. Dorman and Mr. Tytel are alums of, and that Mr. Black is wearing the jersey of right now. It is the Arizona Wildcats. So, Tytel, let me start with you. You're in the center square. How about Arizona this season?
I can't wait to get the sour taste of last spring's horrible loss out of my mouth. So let's get it going. We did lose a lot of starters from last year. Caracrisa went to West Virginia. Trader, we also had some guys go to the NBA. That being said, we do bring back Umar Ballo, who might end up being the conference player of the year. Kylan Boswell, who plays the point. Caleb Love comes over from North Carolina. Keisha Johnson from San Diego State. And remember, like in terms of these transfers, we talk about all these transfers this time of year because it's a big issue, frankly, because nobody knows exactly how they're going to do. We have transfers not only from like big schools, but who've been in big games. Specifically, Love, he had 13 points against Kansas in the 2022 championship game. Johnson had 14 points against UConn in the 2023 championship game. As much as the rest of the team doesn't know how the heck to make a Final Four, these guys do. The problem is the schedule. At Duke, playing Michigan State in California, Wisconsin, playing Purdue in Indianapolis, playing Alabama in Phoenix, playing FAU in Vegas. So not a lot of true road games, thank God, but a very tough neutral site schedule, which will hopefully pay dividends when we have to play neutral site games in March. Dorman, your thoughts?
Uh, let's go to the schedule. Those are some really, really tough games. Sean Miller avoided them they wouldn't play anybody. They had the easiest schedule you've ever seen. He piled up wins, and come March, you're not ready, you're not prepared. I love the schedule. I love going to Duke. I love going to Indy and getting Purdue. If you lose, you lose. It might cost the seed line, it might not. But playing those games gives you experience for March and the atmosphere that cannot be simulated in the Pac-12, cannot be simulated in road games. You just can't. Those are great tests. It really will test your team, your patience, your ability to run offense. I love this schedule. The coach has done a phenomenal job. I think this Arizona team has a great season coming.
Well, Brian, what do you think? Are you with them?
I think that this schedule is set up much like the old Lute Olson years, and is much better than we saw for quite some time. Tommy Lloyd, he has just done such a fantastic job since he took over, and I think with this schedule, them getting ready for moving over to the Big 12, this was indeed vital because with the Big 12 still probably being right up there towards the best conferences, in the Pac-12 probably lacking this coming year in terms of basketball compared to what they would hope. I feel like that the non-conference portion of the schedule especially is going to be really important for them. What I honestly am most concerned about is that first part of the schedule is so difficult. Then with the Pac-12 being much easier, it's kind of that Gonzaga effect. Are there any of those teams in the Pac-12 that are kind of good enough to sneak in there and get a win, especially when Arizona's on the road, against a team, one of those landmine sort of losses that you want to really avoid? There could be some of those in the Pac-12 this season. So that's about the only concern I would say I would have with Arizona in terms of, seed lines. I still think they're probably, I think, a solid 2 seed, maybe a 3 seed.
Yeah. Matt, the only other Pac-12 team, and again, we're not going to be saying Pac-12 for ever again after this year, probably, but only the Pac-12 team in the preseason rankings is Andy Enfield's USC squad.
Yeah, I think they could be really good, but they better hope their starting guards stay healthy. That's the one like that backcourt of Boogie Ellis, Isaiah Collier, and then if you call Kobe Johnson at the three, that's as good as anyone in the country, I think, actually, especially if Isaiah Collier plays up to his expectations as a freshman. But man, there's no depth behind it until Bronny James is healthy. Because that's but basically Bronny James' arrival scared off guys like the recruit Silas Demery, also Reese Dixon Waters to San Diego State. So like some of the backcourt depth they would have had, Bronny scared off, and that his heart issue in the summer will probably keep him out for at least the start of the year. Then, therefore, they've got a great backcourt, and then they got all this front court depth, and I think enough talent that a couple of those guys like Joshua Morgan, Vince Iwachukwu, Kajani Wright, a couple of them, the freshman Arrington Page, a couple of them break there, and then Dennis Rodman's kid is a stretch four or a big three, depending on the lineup. The DJ Rodman. That's a really nice roster, but man, they just need those guards to stay healthy. If they do, I think they could be Final Four good.
Really, Tytel,
Really?
Did you agree with him? Do you think this USC team could challenge your Wildcats at the top of the conference?
So if you hear what Matt's saying, he makes good points in terms of like Bronny James is a McDonald's All-American, and he's like not even in the starting lineup, as Matt is correctly to point out, mostly due to health reasons, obviously, at this point. They bring back Vince Iwachukwu, the big man up front. They have a lot. The starting five can rival Arizona's, I think. I agree with him about the depth. I do like Enfield, and I mean, I think we're not head and shoulders ahead of them. Like, I think we are ahead of them, but I mean, stuff happens. We saw last March, stuff happens with Arizona a lot. I like our chances, but I think USC is a very good pick for the second best team in this conference.
Okay. Stalika, I'm seeing a lot of preseason love for Tad Boyle's Colorado team. And this is a team that I personally seem to always pick to be an NCAA tournament team heading to the season, and seems to always let me down during the regular season. So I'm hesitant on it, but there's a lot of love for this team this year.
This is one of those deep philosophical questions that we typically ask when a team is returning 5 starters. Is that going to be a good thing? Is that going to be a bad thing? Tristan Da Silva, he's spent, I think he's going to be a senior this year for the Buffs right here. You're also going to be returning KJ Simpson, Javon Hadley, Julian Hammond III, and Luke O'Brien. And you also get some production off the bench in Javon Ruffin. So if they can play defense to where Tad Boyle would like, they should be a contender and probably end up as a first ballot team, as the puppet would like to say right here. Now, they're going to be playing a couple of front range games at Colorado State and home against Northern Carolina, and also a third against Metro State if you want to add exhibitions. But I think their biggest test out of conference is going to be at the Barclays Center against the Miami Hurricanes.
Yeah. Griggs, how about we love the front range, so that's the reason to like Colorado. But I don't. I'm really hesitant on this team.
Well, unlike you, Chad, I have not learned my lesson on always overvaluing Colorado. I like them again this year. I like the experience they have coming back. I don't want to just parrot everything Stalika said, but yeah, I was going to say that I thought they could be a dark horse in this league and get in to the inside the bubble, maybe even in on the first ballot.
All right. Dorman, UCLA was 2 seed last year, the only team for this conference to make the Sweet 16. How about Mick Cronin's squad this year? It's a new roster, but it's a Mick Cronin team.
It's a new era. It's a new team in Westwood, Chad. If you can believe this, after 12 years, Tiger Campbell and Jaime Jaquez are gone. Won't be on the team this year. Seems like they've been there forever, but they are finally gone. The lone starter back is Adem Bona, the big guy. He's back for his sophomore campaign. He had some solid outings last year. There is a offseason injury with his shoulder. I am not sure his status, but he is a needed piece because they are young and they are inexperienced. They got some big guys. They really do. One, they got bringing in a 7'3" center from Zaragoza, Spain. His name is Ada Mara. He is supposedly super talented. Great passer, and he's got great touch. The one question I am hearing is his toughness. So in physical games that will be tested, but for Mick Cronin doesn't usually rely on a lot of young players and players that haven't been through the system, especially his defensive system. So this is going to be a trying year for Mick Cronin. Out of conference, they have games Marquette, Villanova, Ohio State, and Maryland. They will be tested on. I think this is a middle of the pack team in the conference. And I know that's crazy to say that, but I don't think he has that much talent like he has had in the past.
Yeah, Matt, though, but Mick Cronin knows how to coach defense, and
Yes,
couldn't that be enough to carry this team?
I would generally say yes, but I really wonder how these young European kids buy in, and are they athletic enough to play his system? Because even though they don't play at a crazy pace as far as possessions, they play really hard defense and also try to turn you over. And I don't know if these kids are going to thrive in that. This is a really unique experiment. Like I can see if everything hits in that, and Cronin maybe adapts his style a little bit to them, they could be top of the league. If it fails, they might not even make the NIT. I think there's that wide of a range of outcome. Like I might like go sort of in the middle and pick them as like an 8 or 9 type seed. If that, I think actually will be playing better as the year goes on, as everyone gets to know each other. Because I mean, those European kids are all super talented. I mean, a Damar would be a top 15 pick in next year's draft as long as things go well at UCLA. So this is a really interesting experiment. Like I'll have fun watching and see how can Cronin adapt, or is he too set in his ways, and which have been mostly successful. But like he's gonna have to probably adapt some things and have the kids see if they can play his style.
How does your cat like UCLA though? That's the bigger question.
As a, I don't know, cats and bears. That's interesting. Yeah.
Bears eat cats.
Yeah.
Brian, you are an Oregon guy. And how about your Ducks this season as they get ready to move along with USC, UCLA, Washington to the Big Ten next year?
So, looking at, I'm not exactly 100% sure about this early season schedule like I usually am. You know, I feel like it's going to be another year of a slow start with the typical damage being done to the resume before conference play rolls around. And then as you get through conference play, the rest of the teams in the league get more and more annoyed because Oregon tends to play better basketball as you get towards February and into March. You know, we got N'Faly Dante. He's a good player. I think he's going to be one of the better players in the conference, provided he stays healthy. You know, that's the thing with Oregon is can guys stay healthy? And, you know, Altman is one of the more winningest head coaches in college basketball. So usually by the end of the season, he hasn't played their best ball. So I really think that's going to be the same sort of situation that you see with them this year. You know, they got the early season event like they typically do. So, you know, and then no early season conference games. I've noticed that with the league this year, there aren't any conference games they're going to have earlier in December like they have the last few years. They put them all at the end of December, and then the extra game against whatever team it is in the middle of the season. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see. But, you know, Oregon tends to play well at home. It's unfortunate they don't get as many fans that they deserve to have in the stands. Hopefully that can change here at some point as they go to the Big Ten.
I miss Matt Court.
I do miss Matt Court. I miss Matthew Knight Arena having a big crowd like they used to in the early 2010s.
Yeah.
I did notice that. I'm sorry. I did notice that Oregon does have a unique game this year in that they'll be the only Pac-12 school that's going to be visiting a SWAC school when they visit Florida A&M during the week of
I'll be glad when that whole series ends because, again, I'm pretty sure that was something Larry Scott put together and in his infinite wisdom before he was given the axe. So I feel like that, again, one of the dumbest things the conference has ever done, and I'm not sure what this.
You know,
I was a fan of it.
All due respect to the SWAC, those kids work so hard, but there's zero upside to playing those games, particularly on the road where, I mean, let's just face it, you're throwing away the home game revenue, however much that would be. The conference literally is throwing that away. by playing those games, and it just makes no sense at all.
Uh,
So it'll be nice. The move to the Big Ten after this season will be very nice in that respect, and that they can go back to just scheduling a normal non-conference schedule with, a decent set of opponents, one early season tournament type event, and several bye games in there.
Getting back to the actual Ducks team though for this season, Titel, I think Brian mentioned the key to this team, and that's the injuries that killed them last year.
Yeah, but I also, in addition to guys like Dante, who I think I agree is going to be one of the best players, if not big men in the conference, they're bringing in not one but two McDonald's All-Americans in Mookie Cook and Kwame Evans. So the youth movement is alive and well in the Pacific Northwest. And as Brian said, Dana Altman is not just a good coach. Like, he's on his way to 750 wins. He's heading towards all-time greatness. Obviously, he doesn't have all the Final Four appearances and championships like some of the other heavyweights in the field, but he's been around a long time, and he's been winning for a long time.
Yeah.
Dorman, I normally hit Titel with the arch rival, but I'm going to give it to you this year. Arizona State was an NCAA tournament team last year. The first four where Bobby Hurley always seems to go. What about this team this year? Another team with a pretty new roster.
Yeah, he's got a lot of new parts. He took a transfer in from Louisville, Kamari Lands. He got another one from LSU, Sean Phillips Jr. Bobby Hurley's seat is really, really hot. He needs to win this year. Now, the conference is down, so he has a chance to stick around and maybe play around in the middle of this conference. I don't love the team he has put together. I don't think they're exceptionally athletic. I don't think they're going to work well together. I have nothing against Bobby Hurley or ASU. I just don't love the pieces he's put together. I don't think they're strong enough up front. I don't think they're great guard play. There's nothing I really love about Bobby Hurley's team this year, and in a year where he needs to win and win fast.
Okay, well, Titel, are we revoking his Arizona alumnship if he says he had nothing against Arizona State?
Might have to suspend him for a few games or something, but I think that's okay. I mean, Hurley lost a lot of guys to the transfer portal and stuff, but can we all agree that he's now the worst coach in his family now that his brother has a ring? Is that agreed? Yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Not close to his dad.
Matt, Stanford, Jared Haas's team they have a good starting five this year. I don't know if they have any depth, but they have a good starting five, I think, don't they?
Yeah, well, first of all, if you told me they had a quality coach, I projected to make the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately for Cardinal fans, they have Jared Haas, who has continually done less with more, and I think this year might be the final exclamation point on that. He's got Pejas Kanaja, which is awesome. Caden Carlisle's another real good freshman. You got Spencer Jones, a real good returnee, Max Morrell, James Keith, Brandon Engel. These useful players who've been around for a long time, but I still don't think they're going to be built into anything at least tournament worthy. Maybe they make the NIT, and that who knows? The way that at Stanford, that might keep Hostage out for another 3 years, given their reaction so far. But that they should probably be tournament quality or a little or close to it. But man, I just don't trust Jared Haas. He's never done it at Stanford.
Griggs, on their way out to the ACC next year.
Yeah.
Do you think Stanford could do anything this year, or are you kind of with Matt?
I'm more or less with Matt. Okay. They had a few moments last year. They do have the three starters back. I kind of like their starting five, like you said, but they did battle against UCLA and USC. They were losing efforts. So I just don't see them getting anywhere near the tournament unless they buy tickets.
Stalika, what about Utah? Craig Smith's team with Brandon Carlson to lead the way there.
Well, outside of a win against Arizona last year, there were a couple flashes in the pan for the Utes last year, but they weren't really consistent enough. They are going to have some returning pieces in Gabe Madsen, who was a one-time transfer from Cincinnati. You've also got the Carlson brothers, Brandon and Ben, who are going to be on the team, along with Raleigh Worcester, who actually came with Craig Smith from Utah State at one point. They're going to be part of the Charleston Classic this year, which is going to include a game against Wake Forest and either Houston or Towson, possibly St. John's along the way. And they'll also have trips to St. Mary's. And as far as games against the Beehive, they host BYU and Utah Valley this year.
The Beehive, another one of our favorite fictional conferences.
Yeah.
Brian, another team on the way to the ACC is Cal. Is there, and the only new head coach in the conference here with Mark Madsen there taking over at Cal, is there any shot that Cal has any life at all this year?
Cal does not have life.
I agree with that assessment.
Hopes.
Yeah.
So, Cal is a basketball program that I feel for. They had the Mike Montgomery years, and I have my opinions on Mike Montgomery, but he's still a good basketball coach in the end of the day. And those years are now long, long gone. And after the Mark Fox, and the other coaches that led to the disaster that was that era, Cal hoping they can kind of start something new, but here at the very, very last year of the Pac-12, I'm not thinking that's going to be it. I think that Cal is going to do the usual Cal thing. They may have a game or two where they play kind of scrappy early in the year, but I think they're going to lose a game or two just because it's what they've been doing the last few years. And I don't think they're going to be very competitive in conference games. I think it's going to be another rough go of it. I do think they will be a little better this year than winning like an NFL football team's worth of games. So,
do you think there's any hope here for the future with a Stanford alum and Mark Madsen coming in to be head coach there at Cal? Coming over from Utah Valley, where he never made an NCAA tournament there.
Well, I mean, when you've had former Stanford coaches go to Cal, you've had Mike Montgomery in that situation, and I believe he wasn't very successful at. I think it was Golden State, the Warriors. So then he went to Cal after that. So we'll see. I mean, you never know. Maybe as they move over to the ACC after this season, it could maybe make some noise. But this season, I think it's just the rebuild is just starting. So it's pretty tough to immediately turn a team around that's just so bad. And then, they're winning our Stallings Award or in the running for the Stallings Award in plenty of seasons for us. So any of those teams, the next season is generally, not a season in which they're going to be all that competitive.
Titel, Washington has Keon Brooks Jr., who led the Pac-12 in scoring last year. Does that matter?
For his chances of repeating, sure.
But I mean, for the team's success. I'm sorry.
Not so much. I do like a couple of the transfers, as we all do this time of year. Nate Calmes in the backcourt and Moses Wood in the front court. But I think Mike Hopkins is going to have a rough time of it, and I wish him luck in a different conference next year.
Do you think that conference will be the Big Ten or possibly another conference as he's no longer at Washington?
I think that anything is possible these days, Chad. If you told me 6 months ago that Arizona and Washington would be in different conferences, I would not have believed you.
Fair enough. Griggs, you had a comment?
Oh, no. I thought I knew where we were going next. I was getting kind of excited.
Well, there's only two teams left, and the two teams that have no conference for next year.
Yes.
Griggs, how about Washington State?
Oh, how about Wazoo? Well, they opened things up with the greatest rivalry in all of college sports at Idaho. The two teams are 8 miles apart, and they've never met in the NCAA tournament. And I think that game will be the highlight of both Wazoo and Idaho's season. It just won't get any better for either one of them after that. Actually, I do like Kyle Smith as a coach, and as much as Wazoo sort of is a running joke for being really, really bad, 11-9 was pretty respectable last year, considering it was Wazoo. Now, the problem is I think virtually everybody is gone from that team, so they're sort of starting all the way over and trying to get back to where they're barely above 500 again. That seems to be their ceiling, but I don't – long-term, can Kyle Smith win at Wazoo in the Mountain West in the future?
in the Mountain West or as an independent or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know how, Dorman, I don't think we can answer the question about Kyle Smith's future because we don't know where this team's going to be playing in the future.
It's a huge question. There's going to be something of these two teams, Washington State and Oregon State, joining forces with some of the teams in the Mountain West, I believe. Yeah. UNLV will probably join in on this, and some other of the stronger Mountain West teams. But that's yet to be determined.
It could actually be that the Pac-12 in some form continues and takes a bunch of the Mountain West as opposed to these two teams joining the Mountain West. So that is still in play.
Correct.
Yeah, it could be
because they still have the bid to the tournament, and they're still in the college football playoff as of we sit here today. So there's a lot of negotiations and some behind the scenes work to be done here.
Matt, we haven't discussed Oregon State yet. Wayne Tinkle had that magical run that 1 year, but is the magic gone?
I think so. I'd like to claim his agent with the contract he got at the Giant buyout. That's going to make sure he'll be the Oregon State coach for the foreseeable future. Because man, that basically set him for life. Now they got former Marquette Warrior there, Dexter Akano, but man, there's not a whole lot on that roster. I see them destined once again for last place, and actually I think comfortably last place because Kyle Smith can coach at Wazoo, and the other 10 rosters I think are far superior. So. I can see this being another about 6-25 and about 2-18 in conference play.
Let's go through that. That is all 12 teams that are in this conference this year. But let's go through each of you now with the same questions we like to ask. Number one, who's going to win the league? Number two, how many bids? And number three, any other final thoughts you have on the conference? Stalika, let me start with you.
I would probably say the best scenario for this conference would end up being 5 teams in the NCAA tournament. That being Arizona, who would be my pick to win the conference. UCLA, USC, Oregon, and Colorado are the real contenders. Realistically, I think they could probably get 3 or 4, but if other conferences collapse, that's where I could potentially see 5 teams getting in. But as far as another final thought, what's going to happen to the NCAA tournament units if everyone's going to be leaving them behind for Washington State and Oregon State? That could be another potential bargaining chip should they decide to merge forces with the Mountain West or who knows where. I just cannot see them going independent just from a TV perspective.
Yeah, that there's a lot of negotiating that's going to have to go on here over the next several months before we get to the start of next academic year. Who's up next? Brian.
So I think that top to bottom, this conference is definitely not as good as most of the other power leagues. I think you're going to see Arizona win it, I think, fairly comfortably. I think unless USC has a little surprise, but I really don't think so. USC and UCLA will be next. And then it'll end up being dependent on how they do in the non-conference portion of the schedule. One of Oregon or Colorado, I think. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of those teams, Oregon or Colorado, ends up making a conference tournament run and wins the last conference tournament championship and gets themselves into the big dance that way. But otherwise, if it's going to be at large, I think a team like Oregon or Colorado will be a first 4 team. And then as far as the rest of the league goes, it's just a jumble of teams there that are borderline NIT teams. And then, at the bottom, you have, Washington State and Oregon State, 2 teams that unfortunately I don't know if they're going to have to go the Chicago State plan for the next couple of seasons after this, which would be pretty rough before the Mountain West's TV contract comes up in 2026. So that's what I'm worried is you got a few Mountain West teams in there like New Mexico or something like that we worried that they'd get kicked to the curb. So that's why you're going to see them have reservations on, disbanding the Mountain West and immediately joining up with Oregon State and Washington State if they're going to create some Pac West or Mountain West sort of deal. So that's going to be the biggest question going forward. We know where all the other teams are going to end up. And depending on where they are, they're going to end up in 2 fantastic basketball conferences. And then you have the Cal and Stanford going to the ACC. So that's a pretty good basketball conference. And then you have Oregon State and Washington State that could end up in Joby's favorite conference. So that'll be interesting how that works out if where that all the money ends up in terms of the units. It'd be ironic if in this last year, there was only like 3 or 4 teams in the conference that make it, so there wouldn't be a whole lot of dinero coming the conference's way and going into the pockets of Oregon State and Washington State. It's just going to be such a huge hit to those athletic departments.
Good point. Good point. Dorman.
I'm just worried about Bill Walton.
Yeah.
Conference. There's nothing left. Where are all the champions? I have the conference way down. I got 3 and 4 on the high side. I have Colorado as the 3rd. USC safely in. Arizona winning it all. UCLA and Oregon would be one of the 4th, but I think they got the positive thing for them is that the conference is so bad that one of them should rack up a lot of wins. So that they do have going for them. So they'll have a strong conference record. If they can do anything in the out of conference part of the schedule, I think they'll be safe, but not a great way to go out for the league. My final thought is something we discussed over the summer on this reshuffling and realignment with the conferences. It's fine for football. The football is a different animal. There's so much money in football, and these TV contracts are just crazy. They also travel 6 times a year. There's 6 road games. They're on Saturdays. They're on the weekends. The kids don't have to miss school and class and all that. With basketball and diving and baseball and every other sport, when you have UCLA, so UCLA is going to have to go one day in the middle of the week, they're going to play Rutgers. Then they're going to go back to the West Coast for school. And a few days later, they're going to go back to Chicago to play a basketball game. It's just too much. It doesn't make sense. It's all based on football, and it only works for football. So someone's going to have to come up with a way better plan if this is going to fail in these first few years, and come up with a much better conference realignment for all the other sports outside of football.
What's wrong with trips to Minneapolis in March for the baseball team?
They might not even play that game. Then they're going to be going to Chicago the next weekend. It's too much travel. There's kids are going to be missing so much class. They're really hurting the kids here.
As far as the conference goes, I actually agree with Dorman here about the number of bids. I am on 3 bids for this conference. I think Arizona and USC are really, really good. I've got no problem with them. I got a group of 6 teams that could be the 3rd team, and I only think one of them makes it. And that is the Colorado, UCLA, Oregon, Stanford, Utah, Arizona State crowd. If I got to pick one right now, because I'm not going to go with Colorado, I'm sorry, I'm going to go UCLA, but I'm just not certain where we are. Matt, how about you?
I think I'm going to be the optimist and maybe the romantic, given it's the last year of the league of this group. I got 5 teams in. I think three are top 25, could include Colorado. I pick USC to win, but I think Arizona 3-4 seed. I like Colorado's going to be like a 5 or 6 seed type team. I like UCLA in the 8-9 range. And I think one of either Oregon or Utah sneaks into the first 4. Maybe it's the one of them that wins the conference tournament to get like an 11 or 12 seed. But yeah, I'll say 5 get in. And I think a couple of them, including USC, do some damage in March. And then my final thought of the league is I hope this isn't the end of it, even though it definitely looks like it for the time being. At some point, when football can just become its own entity, let these schools reunite and have a fun basketball league. That's when it's kind of a night owl. I grew up watching a lot of Pac-12 basketball as a kid. And then back then, even Pac-10 basketball. But man, I like this league. It's generally a lot of fun as long as you got coaches willing to play fun styles. And Tommy Lloyd's a nice final thought on that in Arizona. Good successor to Lute Olson in that regard. But yeah, hope one day this league comes back, and actually I think it ends fairly strongly this year. Like their football counterparts, I think they actually end with a bang.
All right, Titel.
I got my boys winning it all. I'm biased, but I really think they are that good. And I'm telling you, I really think these transfers are going to put us over the top. Trojans are for real, even if they have some depth issues, like Matt said. I believe in Colorado. I didn't last year, and I haven't for a while, but I think this Cody Williams kid is for real. And the fact that they have De Silva and Simpson, they just have a lot of nice pieces. And as everybody in this conference knows, when you play at Colorado, it is a coin flip. I don't want to pick the Ducks or the Bruins, but I'm telling you, Mick Cronin has been to 13 NCAA tournaments. Dana Altman's been to 14 NCAA tournaments. Pick against these coaches at your peril. I'll set the over under at 4.5, and I'll take the under, but like it would not at all shock me if all 5 of those teams made it. As far as my final thought, I was going to do 5 minutes on Larry Scott, but let's not do that. So we got here in our family, we got the Mobley family. So Evan is the coach. Eric is the coach. Isaiah and Evan are his huge sons and NBA players. And we've seen so many times in the past where there's all this scandal about a coach like becoming an assistant for a college and then his kids go there and stuff. And I get it because it's often true. But in this case, let's give a shout out to Mr. Mobley because he's still at USC on the bench, even though he's got 2 kids in the NBA. He's got nothing to prove. He doesn't need the money, but he's doing it. Bravo.
Bravo, indeed. Griggs, you want to finish out the show?
Yeah. I think I'm going with 4. Arizona and USC in protected seed range. And then out 2 of the following 3, it's either going to be UCLA, Oregon, or Colorado. I think I'm going to go with Colorado and then UCLA as my 4th, but I think Oregon is in the mix. And my final thought, just to kind of echo, I hate that the classic version of this conference is coming to an end. The original, I mean, I loved it since it was the Pac-10. I wasn't too thrilled when it went out to 12, but it worked all right and it preserved some of the rivalries.
How about the Pac-8 days? Come on.
Yeah, well, those too, but like the 10-team format, the double round robin, the rivalry game, and I just don't. It's just kind of, this isn't even the first time that a power conference has gone under. It's gone now, and most people kind of forgot the Southwest Conference was a major power conference. We didn't call them the Power 5 back then, but they certainly were a power league. So one of the things that drives me nuts, a lot of people say that they love college sports because it's all about the game. It's all about the purity. It's not about the money. I think that's might be true for the players, maybe, and for some of the coaches is that way. But the people that make decisions, it's not about that at all. College sports is actually less about the game than probably any other sport on the planet. And case in point, what's happening to the Pac-12.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that is it for the Pac-12 previews forever.
Yeah.
At least in this format, like we said, the name may survive, but it will never be the same. But we do have a season ahead for the Pac-12, and we'll see how things go out. But at this point in time, if you look for any other conferences, check out the season preview tab up top. Check out the exhibition game tab. Check out the in-season tournament tab. New format this year. But on behalf of David Dorman and David Griggs up here, John Teitel in the center square, John Sleeka and Brian Black to his sides, Matt Sikowski down in the bottom row. I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again a little later this week with even more conferences that we've got coming up. Talk to you again real soon.